So it's Monday the 13th of July at about 20 to 3, and I'm sitting here in a coffee shop called The Green Man, isn't it? This is called Soul.
This is the Soul.
Cafe Soul in Glastonbury.
Yep.
And I'm sitting at this table. I've intruded upon these very nice, friendly people. There wasn't
we're all
anywhere
lovely
else.
people.
And I'm going to hand you over to. All I know about this chap is that he's a historian, and that, like me, he's smoking a roll-up. So go ahead. Tell us who you are, and what area you've specialised in your history, in your research.
Okay.
Before I start asking you a few questions about King Arthur, the Green Knight, and so on.
Okay. My name's Hugh Le Prevost. I've lived in Glastonbury for 20 years. I'm a researcher, a lecturer, and author, and a bit of an artist. I say a bit of an artist, I'm not that good, but...
good artist.
Well, thank you. I do my best.
Go ahead.
And I'm particularly interested in the Druids, the history of the Druids, and the history of King Arthur,
Right.
and what was going on at that period of time.
Very well.
And
Wonderful.
I just find it really exciting.
Mm.
I don't, as much as I would like King Arthur to have been here, in all honesty, I think the myth of Arthur is here, but I think the reality of King Arthur is actually in South Wales.
Really?
Yeah.
A specific place in South Wales?
Well, the original Arthur was a member of the Desai tribe. Now, the Desai tribe had been exiled, I think, around 400 AD, maybe a bit before, from Ireland. The whole tribe had been exiled. They had a fight with the Irish king, and they lost, and they were chucked out. So they came and they settled in South Wales. And round about the year 550, I think it would be about 550, you have to go and check this out. This is all historically verifiable. There was a king of the Desai tribe called Arthur. There's been several kings of that name, and he had several capitals that were scattered around the whole of Wales. Now what was I going to say about him? Yeah, he had several capitals, and he was crowned at Caerleon by Archbishop Dubricius. And Dubricius...
What kind of period are we talking about?
I think around 510, 500, 510,
So
somewhere around there.
Bishop as early as that?
Yeah, well, call him bishop then. Yes. Oh, yes, there was archbishop. The church was highly organised by that time.
Right.
And there was a lot of bishops in France, in Brittany, because a lot of the British Celts had migrated because of plague, famine and war. They had migrated to northern France, to a district called Armorica, which there were so many of them, they called it Brittany, which means Little Britain or Lesser Britain. And they established themselves there, and the Christian church really got established. Although it was established here, it was really established in Brittany, and they began coming across. There was also theological seminaries in South Wales at that time. For example, Lampeter University was actually a theological college, and one of the main graduates of Lampeter University in those days, in the Arthurian times, was Saint Samson, who is the patron saint of Guernsey, where I originally come from. Now, Saint Samson was the nephew of King Arthur, and he lived in Guernsey, he lived in Brittany and Dol, but he had originally come from South Wales. And
is there any connection between Gawain and the Samson? Is it possibly the same figure?
No, I don't think so. I think they were separate figures, personally.
And
you're thinking Gawain and the Green Knight, presumably.
Yes,
Yeah.
You don't think there's any connection?
I think those are allegorical because the Arthurian stories get incorporated into the legends of the Knights Templar.
Right.
The Knights Templar are went over to the Middle East, as you know, and fought their wars against Saladin and fought alongside Richard the Lionheart, came back, and they came back with great treasure and great secrets, and they hid their secrets in allegorical form, and they used the Arthurian stories as mystical Templar allegories, which eventually became Freemasonry.
Right. Now, can we just have a little digression, now that you talked about the Templars? The great suppression that took place under, was it King Philip of France?
Yes.
In, what, 14...
end of
1300s, I think.
Yeah, yes.
But,
Gosh, the date is left me, but yes, you're right. I'm with you.
What was the cause of that suppression? Why did they destroy the Templars at that time?
Philip was broke. And he had wanted to join the Templars in.
So we can carry on. Go ahead. You said Philip was broke.
Philip was broke. He had wanted to join the Templars in the past, and the Templars had refused to admit him to their order. He was homosexual. That might have been one of the reasons why they didn't want him in their order. I don't know, but that might have been. He was broke and he needed the cash, and the only people who had money at the time were the Templars. So his cousin, I think it was his cousin, was Pope at the time. His name was Innocent. Pope Innocent the First. A travesty of a name. He persuaded Pope Philip, persuaded Pope Innocent to outlaw the Templars. And I think it was 1213, or was it a bit later?
I think it must have been later.
Not much later, but anyway.
You see, because Saladin
it is later.
Jerusalem 1187.
Yes.
He retook Jerusalem, I should say. I think it was at least 100 years after that that the suppression took place. So, what about these accusations that the Templars were secretly Sufis?
The Templars went to the Middle East and they met the Hashashin. The Hashashin.
We can have some stuff and divide
Because this is going to be edited. It's going to go on as it, because it's a conversation. It's not a formal interview.
No.
So that's nice to have little interruptions to show this is live and it's not, fabricated in any
This
way.
is true. Well, the Hashashin, the Templars went over to the Middle East and they met the Hashashin. Well, the Hashashin believed in one God. Well, the Templars also believed in one God, so they thought, well, we've got unity of faith here.
Exactly.
They may not be Christian, but nevertheless, we can work together with these people. And the Hashashin dressed in white robes with a red sash around their waist. Now, the Templars dressed in white with a red cross.
How interesting.
On their
on the back.
On the front.
Oh, really?
And so the uniforms were almost identical, and they fought against Saladin, and they had
And they respected Saladin, didn't they?
They respected Saladin, and that is where they came across hashish for the first time, and they brought it back to Europe, and they called it the Green Man.
Ah. Now that is a very important connection.
And there's not a lot of people.
Not a lot of people know that.
Not a lot of people know that now.
And now you have to explain who that is for our listeners.
Well, that was a very poor attempt at Michael Caine.
Exactly. And that Michael Caine was
because I'm
a
sure,
great
as far
actor.
as the listeners were concerned, with listening to my accent, not a lot of people would know that anyway.
Well, you see, I was born and brought up with that accent, and I was knocked out of me by elocution classes.
I was the same.
Really?
Well, I came from Guernsey, and they speak with a completely different accent to me.
Right.
So that was knocked out of me as well. But yeah, so they brought the hashish back to Europe, called it the Green Man, and the patron saint of Britain and Portugal and Turkey and one or two other countries perhaps is St George. Now for George we have the word geo, meaning earth, and it's the Green Man. St George is the Green Man.
I see. Perfect. And that's why you said Al-Khidr is the Green Man as well. Al-Khidr, pronounced.
Yes, Al-Khidr.
It's pronounced Al-Khidr with a ba, which is a very difficult Arabic letter to pronounce.
Say it again.
Ba. That's like my name, Rida. But it's very. You got it right in one, Jennifer. Jennifer, you got it right in one. Great. He's telling us about. Go ahead, Hugh. So he was telling us that George comes from Geo, which means earth, and that the Knight Templar brought back hashish, calling it the Green Man, as a kind of code. Go ahead.
That's correct. And, well, they obviously must have been using it in their rituals. It was a very sacred plant to them. And so, of course, St. George, they sanctified the plant. And basically, they called it that. So when you have stories of Sir Gawain in the Green Knight, it's actually a quest for enlightenment through the use of herbs.
Herbs as a kind of support,
Yes.
not as the path.
No.
As healing.
No, you should never use it as the path. It's if you're using it, if you're seeking the truth, you should never. You can use drugs, but never use the drugs for search for ultimate truth. They are stepping stones that will lead you to the ultimate truth.
Continue.
I think, the use of drugs is in actual fact. I think it's ultimately it's a bit of a perversion of the true use of drugs, how they were meant to be used. They were meant to be used in more in a ritualistic way, in a devotional way.
Right.
The shaman in South America, for example, still use different hallucinogens, but they don't use the hallucinogens all the time. They use them from time to time. And there's a big difference in that. Because if you're permanently stoned, you're not going to be much use to anybody. And, we've got intuition, but God also gave us intellect. We have brains as well as a heart. And we have to know when you speak from the heart, and we have to know when to speak from the head. And then we can act intelligently.
True. So go back to the Green Knight.
Yeah.
And Sir Gawain.
Yes. What, the story?
Well, how did the Knights Templar incorporate the Arthurian dimension of that legend into their active spirituality?
Well, the story goes that the Green Knight turns up at the court of King Arthur. Remember, the court of King Arthur is in actual fact a Templar court. And we're talking about the Grand Master. Arthur is the Grand Master of the Templars, and his knights are the Knights Templar. And their main thing is they're going on the quest for the Holy Grail, which contains the elixir of life. It's a variant of the Grail quest, if you like. The Green Knight turns up, and he says in King Arthur's court, I challenge anybody to strike me, and after a year and a day, I will return the blow. And he turns up at Arthur's court with this challenge. The knights are all dumbfounded, and Arthur says, "Give me a sword and I'll cut his head off." And one of the knights, Gawain, stands up and he says, No, Arthur, my Lord King, I haven't won any noble quest at all. Let me have this honour. And Arthur says, "Very well, you do it." So he takes his sword, and the Green Knight says, "I'm very pleased to see you, Sir Gawain." And he kneels down, and Gawain takes his sword and cuts his head off. And the Green Knight reaches forward, picks the head up, and places it back on his shoulders. Gets on his horse, turns round and says to Gawain, "Come and meet me in the Green Chapel," which is somewhere in Wales. "Come and meet me in the Green Chapel in a year and a day, and I will return the same blow." And he rides off. Well, the court is utterly dumbfounded and utterly perplexed. This was at Christmas time. The Christmas festivities go on, and then life goes on, and then a little bit later on in the year, Gawain realises he has to go on his quest. So he goes on a quest for the Green Knight. This gets a little bit convoluted. Do you want me to continue?
With one little break, because I've got to go and get some cake. So let's just put a pause while the bells chime 3. It's 3 o'clock.
Are you alright, Nick?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Are you in there?
So, as the year starts to progress, Gawain thinks, well, I'd better get on my way and go questing for the Green Knight. So he goes on and he quests for the Green Knight and the Green Chapel, and he gets to North Wales, where he believes the Green Chapel is, where the Green Knight will be. But he can't find it. But he sees a castle, and he goes to the castle. This is, by the way, this is a medieval tale that would have been told in the courts, in medieval courts at the time. So he comes to a castle, Gawain does, and he bangs on the door of the castle, or castle gate, whatever, and it's answered by a man dressed in red, and he is the Red Knight. And he said, "I'm looking for the Green Chapel because I've got to meet the Green Knight." And he said, "Oh, he said, your quest is almost over." He said, "It's Jenny is, but you can sit over here." And he said, "You can sit here, and that's fine." So he sits there.
Yeah, I know. A lot better.
By the way, this is Claire.
Claire, do you want to introduce yourself? This is an interview for the Green Knight Multimedia website.
Sugar.
For you, opportunity knocks.
I can't be doing with it. I'm not very good at all that kind of stuff, am I? I'm more like doing things and less talking about it.
You're okay. You're brilliant.
Hugh's brilliant at talking.
I'm vaccinated with a gramophone needle.
I know. But you talk so well.
Oh, I do.
You do it so well. This is what we...
So anyway, he says, "Come and stay with me." So he said, "Okay." He said, "Well, your quest is nearly over. The Green Chapel's just way down over there, not very far away." So he goes over and he stays with them. And the next morning, the Red Knight says to him, "I'm going hunting today, and whatever I catch, I will give you." He said, "You stay here," he said, "but whatever you get, you must give me." So he said, "Okay, that's a good deal." So he goes off, and while he's gone, the Red Knight's wife does her best to seduce him. She said, "Oh, I'm so tired of living with this boring old man. You come to bed with me. I want to make love with you. I need a real man in my life." And he says, "No," he said, "I am a knight of King Arthur. I behave honourably. I will not sleep with you. You are a married woman." And she tries and tries, but he refuses to sleep with her. And at the end of the day, she said, "Oh, all right." And she gives him one kiss on the cheek. So the Red Knight comes home, and he comes home with the deer. And she said, "Look," he said, "I've got a deer." He said, "Well, we had an agreement. I will give you the deer, and you must give me what you've got today." So he presents him with the deer, and the Green Knight said, "Well, this is all I have to give you." And he gives him a kiss on the cheek. I suspect in medieval times there might have been a little bit more embellishment to this, you know, a little bit more bawdy probably. But anyway, gives him a kiss on the cheek. So the next day, the Red Knight says, I'm going hunting again. He said, you stay here and whatever you catch, you give me. And whatever I catch, I will give you. So the Red Knight goes off. And that day, his wife comes again. We're still in the story, by the way, of the Green Knight, would you believe? He says, and she does her best to seduce Gawain. All day she really tries it, put on a low-cut dress, you know, and really flaunts it in front of him. But no, has no effect whatsoever. And in the end, she gives him 2 kisses. And at the end of the day, the Red Knight comes home and he said, all I got was this wild boar. And he gives a wild boar that he's caught to Gawain. He said, what have you got for me? And he gives the Red Knight 2 kisses. And the Red Knight says, where did you get those from? He said, that wasn't part of our arrangement. He said, you only asked me to give you what I had got today. He said, that's true, fair enough. So they're all happy and they have a lovely time. The next day, the 3rd day, he goes out and he said the same thing again. Whatever you get, I will give you, and whatever I get, whatever you get, you must give me, and whatever I get, I will give you. So he comes home the next day, or rather the next day they go off, and the Red Knight's wife really does her best to seduce him, anything she can to seduce him. She pulls all the stops out, but Gawain is strong of character. Because it's a test. The whole story of this point of the story is a test of the faithfulness of Gawain and the faithfulness of the knights, the true knights of Christ. So, and he refuses to have anything to do with her. And she said, well, look, she said, I know you're going to meet the Green Knight. She said, take this girdle of mine and put it on. It's a green girdle or a green belt. Put it on, and it has magical properties, and it will protect you from any harm from the Green Knight. The Red Knight comes home, and he said, all I got was this useless old fox. But here you are, here's the fox. What did you get? And I should point out, the Red Knight's wife had given him 2 more kisses. And he said, here's the red fox that I got. He said, but what else what else have you got for me today? And he gives him 2 more kisses. And the Red Knight said, well, come on, where did you get those kisses from? He said, no, we had an agreement. He said, and that wasn't part of the agreement, so I'm not going to tell you. And they had a laugh about it. But he didn't mention about the green belt that his wife had given him. So he puts the big green belt on the next morning, and he bids farewell to the Red Knight, and he goes off to the Green Chapel. And he hears the Green Knight sharpening his axe on the whetstone. And he shouts out, are you in there? I am Gawain. I have come to fulfill my promise to meet you. And he said, just a minute, Gawain, you stay there, and I will join you. So he comes out, and he said, I am pleased to see you, Gawain. You are indeed a brave knight. And the Green Knight, Gawain says, well, come on, get on with it then, strike your blow. So the Green Knight takes his axe and swings it. And Gawain flinches, and he said, oh, you coward, you flinched. And he said, well, what do you expect? He said, you're going to cut my head off. He said, at least you could pick your head up and put it on your shoulders. Once you've struck your blow, my head will be there, and that'll be it. So he takes another swing. Goes the axe and swings just past his head. And this time Gawain doesn't move. He says, "Oh, strong like a tree, Gawain. That is good. Now I will strike my death blow." You go, "Wah!" And he just nicked him on the neck. That's all he did. The Green Knight nicked Gawain on the neck, and Gawain sprang back, drew his sword out, and he said, "That was our bargain. You had one blow on me, now it's my turn." He said, "If you have another go at me, you've broken your promise." And then he hears laughter, and he looks up, and the Green Knight has transformed into the Red Knight. And he said, "This was a test, Gawain, to see how faithful you were to the principles of knighthood." And he said, "You didn't tell me about the belt that my wife gave you. So I gave you a little nick, because it was just a little lie. But if you had slept with my wife, your head would be lying in the grass." So they go back to the castle and they have a wonderful celebration, and Gawain goes back to the court of King Arthur, and he tells King Arthur and the other knights what's happened. And after that, the knights of King Arthur always wore a green belt or a green sash in honour of Gawain's quest to meet the Green Knight.
Amazing story.
Yeah. Now that was a story that would have been told in medieval times, and the minstrels would have told it a lot better than I've told it.
You've done it wonderfully well. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Now, alas, I have to go.
Okay.
So, we're going to have to stop this here, and it's at 33 minutes. You've given us a wonderful introduction to the Green Knight Multimedia website.
Thank you.
And although this is only the 5th conversation I've had, I think, in the last few days, this one is going on first. So
Brilliant.
On that note, I will stop, and I'll thank Amanda, Claire, Jennifer, who's just had to go, Abdurrahman, and Nick. So thank you all very much indeed.